The story begins with a young girl named Yoo Soo-yeon, who is walking outside her school. She receives a phone call that leaves her feeling upset. At the same time, she notices other children being picked up by their parents, which emphasizes that her own parents are unable to come for her today. To make things worse, the weather turns bad, and it begins to rain. Soo-yeon decides to take the bus home. When she steps off the bus, she uses her backpack to shield herself from the rain. A car pulls up beside her, and she gets in. The car drops her off near her house, and she walks the rest of the way. Inside the house, her stepmother, Kyung-hee, is cutting a cucumber with a knife. When Soo-yeon enters, Kyung-hee looks startled and hesitant. Soo-yeon announces that she's home and heads to her room. However, it is revealed that Soo-yeon was supposed to have died, yet she has been mysteriously returning home every day for a week. The next morning, a man named Sang-ho is watching the news in his store. The report states that a girl's body was discovered the day before. 10 days after her disappearance, the girl's name is Yoo Soo-yeon. As he listens, Sang-ho notices that the girl's body had been placed in a red suitcase, similar to the ones he sells. This jogs his memory. 10 days earlier, a rude customer had purchased a suitcase like that from his store. After the man left, Sang-ho had gone to buy some food and encountered a young delivery boy named Yoon. Sang-ho recalls something strange. The rude customer had paid with a check signed under Yoon's name. Meanwhile, in an unsettling twist, Yoon takes a pizza and soda to deliver to an apartment building. The delivery leads him to the rude man's home. When Yoon hands over the food, he hears a noise from the basement and mentions it to the man. The man, unfazed, sternly asks him to leave. Once alone, the man goes to the basement, where a girl is tied up. It is revealed to be Yoo Soo-yeon. The man frees Soo-yeon momentarily to let her eat the pizza. She pleads to go home, but the man, already under the influence of alcohol, picks up a heavy object and kills her. Returning to the present, Sang-ho watches the news, where it is reported that the girl died from severe head trauma. He debates contacting the police to report his suspicions, but his wife dissuades him, fearing they will lose their customers if their store is linked to the case. Elsewhere, Yoon pieces together clues, realizing that the killer strikes every 10 days. He remembers seeing similar 10-day intervals marked on the rude man's calendar. Before he can act on this, his father interrupts, giving him another delivery to handle. Back at Soo-yeon's home, Kyung-hee sits under the kitchen table, clutching a cross, terrified of her stepdaughter's presence. When the door opens, she is relieved to see her husband, Myung-gak, enter. Myung-gak says he only came to grab extra clothes before heading back to work. Kyung-hee begs him to stay, confessing her fear of Soo-yeon. Myung-gak, in disbelief, says he would give anything to see their daughter again, even in a dream, and doesn't understand why Kyung-hee is so afraid. He accuses her of never treating Soo-yeon as her real daughter, revealing that Kyung-hee is actually her stepmother. After Myung-gak leaves, Kyung-hee is overcome with guilt, realizing she failed to keep a promise she made to Soo-yeon the day she died. Nearby, a man named Jang Do-chul is stopped by police and taken to the station. They collect his DNA, though he complains about being brought in whenever there's trouble. The officers remind him that his criminal history makes him a suspect. However, since Jang Do-chul has an alibi, he is released. As soon as he leaves the police station, Jang Do-chul visits a man and starts beating him up for failing to repay a debt. The man pleads for forgiveness and more time, reminding Jang Do-chul that he is his uncle. However, this enrages Do-chul even more because his uncle never visited him in prison or showed up when Do-chul's sister, his mother, passed away. Meanwhile, the killer is cleaning his basement when Jang Do-chul angrily bangs on his door. Do-chul is furious because the killer parked in his designated spot. The killer moves his car but notices that Do-chul has spit on his windshield. When the killer questions him, Do-chul spits on it again, clearly asserting his dominance. Recognizing the danger, the killer backs off, noticing Do-chul's tattoos, which suggest he's likely connected to a gang or the underworld. Elsewhere, the building's maintenance man, Mr. Hong, is sorting through complaints about food waste being improperly disposed of with regular trash. While checking the garbage, he finds a suspicious bag that he assumes belongs to the rude tenant, the killer. Thinking he can leverage this discovery, Hong decides to demand a free drink from the killer in exchange for keeping quiet. Hong knocks on the killer's door, asking for a drink, but the killer dismisses him. Undeterred, Hong begins opening the bag, only to find Soo-yeon's blooded clothes inside. Realizing the threat, the killer acts quickly, using the same heavy object he used to kill Soo-yeon to strike and kill Hong. Moments later, Kyung-hee returns home and finds the killer mopping up blood from the floor. Feigning calmness, the killer pretends to be on the phone with a realtor, claiming he can't sell the house due to ongoing issues. Kyung-hee walks past him, but as she ascends the stairs, she hears a cell phone ringing. It's Hong's phone, coming from behind the killer's door. Alarmed, Kyung-hee hurries into her apartment for safety. Later, she hides under the kitchen table again, terrified, as Soo-yeon's ghost appears to her once more. The story flashes back to the day Soo-yeon was abducted. After getting a ride home from the killer, she thanked him and began walking toward her apartment. The killer stopped her, asking her to help hold a box while he unlocked his door. He instructed her to turn away so she wouldn't see his lock combination. However, once the door was open, he silently moved behind her, grabbed her, and dragged her inside. Soo-yeon struggled, but the killer overpowered her. Elsewhere, Yoon conducts online research and comes across a photo from the crime scene where Soo-yeon's body was found. To his shock, the killer is visible in the crowd in the background. Later, the killer orders pizza, and Yoon delivers it to his house. While there, Yoon notices a cap that matches the one the killer was wearing in the photo. Realizing the danger, he notes that it hasn't been 10 days yet and quickly leaves. The killer, meanwhile, takes the pizza to the basement and prepares to dispose of Hong's body. Muttering to himself, he complains about Hong being too nosy. The following morning, the killer visits Sang-ho's store to buy 2 more suitcases. Elsewhere, a new maintenance worker, Jong-rok, replaces Hong. A woman named So-hae informs Jong-rok about unusually high water bills in some apartments and asks him to investigate potential pipe damage. Meanwhile, Kyung-hee visits a mechanic to pick up her car. The mechanic hands her a headband that used to belong to Soo-yeon, triggering a flashback. It reveals that on the day Soo-yeon died, she had been searching for her headband but couldn't find it. Kyung-hee was supposed to pick her up from school but got distracted while looking for the headband in her car. The headband had fallen under the seat, and as she reached for it, she caused a car accident. This delay prevented her from picking Soo-yeon up on time, setting off the chain of events that led to her death. Back in the present, Jong-rok calls the killer to inform him that his apartment is incurring an unusually high water bill. He asks if there might be a water leak. Killer realizes he's wasting too much water while trying to clean the blood from his floor. Before he can respond further, his doorbell rings, and he abruptly hangs up the phone. At the door, So-hae stands, asking if they can talk inside because she doesn't want their neighbor, Kyung-hee, to overhear them. Killer lets her in. So-hae expresses concerns about the neighborhood becoming unsafe and mentions her intention to install a security camera at the front entrance. However, she needs all the tenants to sign their agreement. Killer refuses to sign, saying he's moving out soon since he's only rented the apartment for 3 months. As So-hae moves around the apartment, she comments on how disorganized and messy it is. Irritated, Killer grabs a metallic toy, contemplating killing her. However, So-hae receives a phone call during their conversation and mentions her exact location to the caller. Killer quickly realizes that harming her while she's on the phone would immediately make her disappearance traceable. Thinking on his feet, he pretends to be casual and tells So-hae that he purchased the toy while traveling, offering it to her as a gift. Outside the building, Kyung-hee stumbles into Tae-seon's daughter, Soo-yeon. Shocked by how much the girl resembles her late daughter, Kyung-hee is visibly shaken. The girl helps Kyung-hee up and accompanies her to her apartment. As they climb the stairs, Killer sees the girl and also feels unsettled by her resemblance to Kyung-hee's daughter. Inside her apartment, Kyung-hee has a brief conversation with Soo-yeon, asking if she knew her late daughter, but the girl says they were in different classes. Kyung-hee laments that she didn't do enough for her daughter while she was alive, to which Soo-yeon responds that her mother also doesn't do much for her. A mom is a mom by just being there, she remarks. When Soo-yeon leaves, Killer watches her through the crack of his door. Kyung-hee notices his suspicious behavior. Later, Soo-yeon visits Jong-rok after finding Kyung-hee's glasses near Block 11, which is right in front of Killer's apartment. This raises Jong-rok's suspicions. Jong-rok knocks on Killer's door, stating he needs to inspect for water leakage. Killer refuses entry, but Jong-rok notices the shadows under the door shifting, indicating that Killer is standing behind it. Jong-rok mentions that since Killer is moving out soon, the apartment will still need to be inspected, and he'll return with technicians. Cornered, Killer reluctantly lets Jong-rok in. Jong-rok inspects the first bathroom before heading to the basement. There, he finds clumps of hair clogging the drain and spots bloodstains deep within the walls. Jong-rok begins trembling but remains composed. Killer, sensing something is wrong, grabs a screwdriver and steps closer to Jong-rok. Using a small mirror, Jong-rok sees Killer's approach and discreetly grabs one of his tools, pretending to work. Killer hesitates and steps back. Jong-rok quickly finishes the inspection and leaves. Later, Jang Do-chul confronts Killer on the street, grabbing him by the neck in anger because he keeps parking in his spot. Killer tries to fight back, but Do-chul uses his skills to subdue him, forcing him to the ground. Before leaving, Do-chul warns him to stay out of his parking spot or face the consequences. Enraged, Killer decides to take out his anger and visit Sang-ho to demand the combination for one of the suitcases he previously sold him. Using Sang-ho's phone, Killer makes a call to Jang Do-chul, likely plotting his revenge. Later, Killer visits Sang-ho and attacks him, dragging him back to his apartment. In the meantime, Killer orders pizza and Yoon delivers it. Upon receiving the payment, Yoon notices that his fingers are stained red. Examining the bill, he sees what appears to be blood. Suspicious, Yoon tries to peek inside Killer's apartment, but Killer hears the commotion and rushes to the window. At the same time, Jong-rok appears and shines his flashlight into Killer's apartment, momentarily blinding him and giving Yoon a chance to hide. After Killer closes the curtains, Yoon explains to Jong-rok about the bloody bill and declares his intention to inform the police. Jong-rok warns Yoon not to stir up trouble by making accusations against the killer. He explains that the residents are already on edge and baseless claims could backfire on Yoon. Discouraged, Yoon leaves. Jong-rok retreats to his workspace, where his inner torment manifests as a hallucination of a man from his past, a professor he once betrayed. Jong-rok had stolen the professor's thesis years ago, leading to the man's suicide. For 14 years, Jong-rok has been hiding, waiting for the statute of limitations on his crime to expire. The ghost of the professor urges him to act against Kyung-hee, but Jong-rok is hesitant to draw attention to himself. That night, Killer taunts Do-chul by calling him to move his car. When Do-chul confronts him, Killer provokes a fight, but ends up beaten and humiliated. Despite losing, Killer is thrilled to obtain Do-chul's DNA during the scuffle, which he plans to use to frame him for future crimes. Back in his apartment, Killer attaches the DNA-stained piece of iron to a shovel, turning it into a sinister weapon. The next morning, Killer stalks Soo-yeon, but is spotted by Kyung-hee, who becomes suspicious. Jong-rok, also noticing Killer's behavior, warns Soo-yeon to have someone pick her up from school for safety. That evening, Kyung-hee calls the police to report Killer's suspicious activities, but Jong-rok begins packing to flee the neighborhood, reluctant to face another confrontation with the killer. The ghost of the professor tries to persuade him to stay and protect Soo-yeon, but Jong-rok is focused on surviving until the statute of limitations expires. Meanwhile, Killer successfully frames Do-chul for his crimes by planting evidence. Do-chul is arrested, but his uncle provides an alibi, complicating the police's case. In another twist, Sang-ho, whom Killer had previously attacked and tied up, regains consciousness and discovers Killer's phone in a storage box. Using the dying battery, he makes a desperate call to the pizza shop where Yoon works. Yoon overhears the plea for help and identifies the phone as belonging to Killer. Later, Killer manipulates So-hye, the tenants' association leader, into hosting a meeting about installing security cameras. His true intent is to distract Kyung-hee and separate her from Soo-yeon. However, Kyung-hee remains vigilant and picks up Soo-yeon from the bus station that night. As Killer follows them, a random bird causes an accident that plunges the city into darkness. Kyung-hee cleverly creates a traffic jam, surrounding herself and Soo-yeon with car's headlights, preventing Killer from attacking them. Frustrated, Killer retreats to his apartment. In his basement, Killer attempts to finish off Sang-ho, but the latter resists. Their fight is interrupted by the doorbell. Yoon and Jong-rok, determined to stop Killer, have arrived. Yoon tricks Killer into opening the door by offering a free pizza. Inside, a confrontation ensues, leading to a chaotic brawl in the basement. Do-chul, having escaped custody, joins the fight. When the lights come back on, Do-chul realizes Killer's true nature and attacks him. Jong-rok, overcome with anger and hallucinating Soo-yeon's death, kills Killer by smashing his skull with the killer's own weapon. The police and an ambulance arrive, rescuing Sang-ho and bringing Kyung-hee and Soo-yeon to safety. Jong-rok slips away before being discovered. A month later, Kyung-hee and her husband reconcile and decide to stay in their apartment. Sang-ho reflects on why killer didn't kill him outright, but instead kept him alive, even sleeping next to him at times, as if fearing something greater than himself. So guys, this is the conclude of this story, and for more videos subscribe to Cine Recaps.